Hey, what's up everyone? The next chapter is here. Again, we will continue with the e4, c5 on the bit non-standard lines. We didn't come to the main lines yet. Still a long journey, but this is how you need to learn the openings on a semi-pro or pro level. So the move pawn to f4. Remember in the last chapter I said that there is a difference between knight to c3 and then pawn g3 or like knight e2 first, because this will give us the chance to try to play the move d5 as black. We will see a similar thing in this video as well. White plays the move f4. If white does the move knight c3, knight c6, f4, this is the Grand Prix attack. We will talk about it later. Quite interesting line. And white will not allow us to play d5. That's why we saw the move f4. We saw the opportunity to hit the center to surprise our opponent. Let's play d5. So many players will be scared of this. They'll try to defend the pawn. They'll try to push it. We will have a very comfortable game after that. So white has several options. Knight c3, after which we can do almost like whatever we want. d4, d captures, like we can do this, and then even d3 takes, we can try. So d takes and captures, knight f6, knight f6, e takes f6 is good. We can try to sacrifice this pawn and just play like knight c6 for the initiative. Try to move the pawn to e5 could be an interesting way as well. So if white plays the move bishop b5 check, bishop d7 takes, I think black's position is quite comfortable. d3 knight c6, knight f3 pawn e6, the normal development, knight can get here, or bishop d6 knight e7, that's a good option as well. Like this, again, Caro-Kann's way. So if white does the move e takes d5, we do knight f6 or queen d5, both are quite good, and then just develop. Queen goes back, and now knight h6. Remember about this interesting option too. Knight goes to f5 and controls the d4 square, so white will not do d4 anywhere. But knight f6 is a possibility. We will see this idea later on. c4, e6, here takes, queen e2, knight e2, knight c6. So for the pawn, black has an excellent compensation because the backward pawn on d2 is quite weak. The rook is very good. We have an outpost. It's much easier for black to develop the pieces, and we will usually develop our bishop to g7, not to d6, so it will not be on the way of the rook. So there are some other ways as well. For example, if white does the move knight c3 immediately, again, d4, knight e2, d3, so captures queen d3, knight c3, knight c6, quite normal for us. So again, I don't want to talk much about this. Let's try to understand more unique lines. Knight f3, d takes e4, knight e5. I saw this interesting idea from white side. So the main reason for it is to have a fantastic knight on e5. We need to try to get rid of it as soon as possible. The bishop wants to jump to c4 and then attack the f7 square with the knight cell, or the bishop wants to get to b5 and then check, create some pins, create some threats. We need to be careful. Never play the move f6. There is queen h5 check, g6, bishop, knight takes, and then queen h8. We need to be very careful about it. That's why we do either knight d7 to get rid of this knight, like g6, giving the pawn back, bishop g7, so if he captures, we can take on e5. Or we play the move g6, we can try to be a bit greedy, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop c4, and then pawn e6 to stop this short castle. There is always queen d4 check, threatening the bishop, knight c6, knight to d7, just bishop g7, and then short castle should be completely fine for black. So I want to talk more about the move e takes d5. Let's try to understand what's going to happen here. We can capture with the queen. Not the worst option. So knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, queen e6 check. But compared to those lines where the bishop was already developed on g2 and the king needed or forced to go to f1, here white can play the move bishop to e2. White's development is better. They can open the game much faster. Their king is safer. So I think that white has chances for an advantage. Maybe they already have an advantage. So I want to get out of this position. Instead, play the move knight to f6. This is very Scandinavian-ish way to play. Just to remind you that e4, d5 is the Scandinavian variation. E takes knight f6 instead of queen d5. Queen d5 is a normal option too, but lots of times black wants to attack and then capture this knight with the this pawn with the knight, so the queen will not be developed, will not be attacked. And after c6, black is going to place c4, c6, takes, attack the d4 square, bring the pawn to e5, and have an excellent compensation for the lost pawn. We will try to do a similar stuff on our end. So takes, and then knight goes to f6. So if white doesn't defend the pawn, we will just capture. And now this is completely different because he doesn't have the knight to attack us. I don't care if he plays c4. Remember, the pawn moves will not develop his pieces. It's just an attack and I'll retreat. So knight f3, I'm going to play knight to c6. Later, bring this bishop to g7, do short castle, and have a very comfortable game. If white plays the move c4, this is probably the main line. Hit with the move e6. We need to get rid of this pawn. Otherwise, why we sacrifice the pawn in the center? Takes, and then bishop e6. Knight f3, knight c6. So why we sacrifice the pawn? What's the reason? Let's understand where is our compensation, because if we will understand it, our game is going to become much easier to play as well. So we sacrifice in order to open both of the files, like A and D. Remember the Smith-Morra, it's a bit similar to that, but like now from black side. So opening up the central files, the Smith-Morra was a bit different, but white would do the same. Now we will do it as black, like counter gambit, let's say. So we have three pieces in the game. We have this outpost on d4. The knight will jump to d4 sooner or later. This pawn is very weak because it's a backward pawn. If the white pawn moves to d3, it's going to close the bishop, so white's pieces are going to be quite passive. So for one pawn, we probably got like 2-3 extra tempos. Better development, better pieces, probably safer king as well because his pawn moved to f4. So the compensation should be, you know, good enough. And then just play g6 because the bishop is closed on this diagonal. Again, white wanted to do g3, bishop g2 to have the bishop on that diagonal. We will play g6 and bishop g7. And our bishop is very, very powerful because the diagonal is completely opened. So we have a great sniper on our end, and we will try to develop, finish it, and just play the game. Queen to d7, rook to d8, knight jumps to d4. In some positions, the bishop goes to g4. This knight can jump to h5 or g4. If there is a chance, attack the pawn on d3 or just play on the e file, attacking the e2 bishop. One last hint about the bishop on g7. You will see this bishop a lot in the close Sicilians, which will happen after e4, c5, knight c3, knight c6. Just know that this bishop is usually extremely strong because the diagonal is opened compared to the white's bishop on e2 because the pawn on e4 is on the way. So this concludes our chapter with e4, c5, and then immediate f4. Again, try to play like Scandinavian, d5, e captures d5, and then knight f6. Sacrifice the pawn, play aggressively, develop very fast, and you will have a good game, good compensation. Maybe you can play for an advantage. So, see you in next chapters. Please like, follow, subscribe, comment. So, have a nice day.